You ever watch someone dig their own grave? It's slow work, messy. In my first life, I tried to snatch the shovel from her hands. I screamed the truth and got buried instead. This time, I handed her a backhoe, and I poured the drinks while she dug. I didn't scream when I woke up. Screaming is for people who believe someone is coming to help. Instead, I lay perfectly still beneath the heavy down comforter, staring at the familiar stucco pattern of my childhood ceiling. My chest heaved. The phantom sensation of cold concrete and rain from my final moments in the previous timeline clung to my skin like a wet film. I touched my face, warm, smooth, no blood, no scars. I rolled over and grabbed the phone off the nightstand. The screen lit up, glaring in the dim morning light. October 14th, 3 years ago. 3 years before the bankruptcy. 3 years before the public humiliation. The isolation. The hollow look in my father's eyes before his heart gave out. 3 years before I died alone on a slick highway, chasing a ghost of a life that had been stolen from me piece by piece. I sat up, the air in my lungs finally turning from ice to oxygen. I was back. Junior year of high school. The exact week it all started. I walked to the bathroom and stared in the mirror. I looked exactly the same. Same dark, heavy hair. Same sharp jawline. But the eyes were different. The girl staring back at me wasn't a naive 17-year-old anymore. She was a corpse walking around in a teenager's body. Downstairs, the house was quiet. My parents were in London on business, leaving me alone with the housekeeper, Maria, who was currently humming in the kitchen. The smell of fresh coffee and toasted brioche hit my senses, overwhelmingly normal. In my past life, this morning had been unremarkable. Today, it felt like the quiet before a slaughter. I got dressed. Denim. A plain white sweater. Scuffed boots. I didn't care about looking like the heiress to the regional logistics empire my father had built. I just needed to look invisible. The drive to school was a blur. The parking lot was a sea of luxury SUVs and beat-up sedans, the typical mix of a private academy that took a handful of scholarship kids to fulfill its charity quota. And there she was, Vanessa. She was leaning against Tyler's Jeep, laughing. Her blonde hair was curled into perfect, effortless waves. She wore a designer jacket that I knew for a fact still had the tags tucked into the left sleeve so she could return it on Monday. Bile sat hot in the back of my throat. Vanessa was the scholarship girl who didn't want to be one. In the first timeline, I barely noticed her until she started integrating herself into my friend group. She mirrored our clothes, our speech. Then she started hinting at a trust fund. A strict father who cut her off. A sprawling estate in the next county. The lie had grown like a tumor. When I finally caught her in it, when I realized she was stealing my clothes from the locker room, forging invitations, and claiming my family's secondary properties as her own, I called her out publicly. It was the worst mistake of my life. Vanessa didn't just deny it. She cried. She manufactured a story about me bullying her because I was jealous of her relationship with Tyler. She forged text messages. She played the victim so masterfully that my friends abandoned me. The school administration disciplined me. And when my father's company hit a rough patch, Vanessa was the one who leaked internal documents she'd swiped from my house, spinning a narrative of embezzlement that triggered the federal audit. She destroyed my family just to ensure her lies were never exposed. I closed my car door. The sound echoed in the damp morning air. I walked past the Jeep. Lily, my supposed best friend, caught my eye and waved. "Sadie! Over here!" Lily called out. I forced the muscles in my face to form a smile. It felt entirely unnatural, but it worked. I walked over, dropping my bag by Tyler's tires. "You missed the announcement," Tyler said, wrapping an arm around Vanessa's waist. He looked at her like she was the center of the universe. It made my stomach turn, but I kept my breathing even. "What announcement?" I asked, keeping my voice light, unbothered. Vanessa beamed, tossing her hair over her shoulder. "My parents are finally letting me use the summer house for the weekend. They're in Paris. I'm throwing a party tomorrow night. Everyone's coming." I stared at her. The audacity of it was almost physically heavy. The summer house she was talking about was the Hawthorne Estate, a massive, mid-century modern property sitting on 50 acres of private coastline. It had been in my mother's family for 3 generations. We rarely used it in the fall, and the estate manager only checked on it twice a month. In my past life, when she said this, I snapped. I called her a psychotic liar. I yelled that Hawthorne was mine. She burst into tears. Tyler called me a classist bitch, and the isolation began. This time, I looked at Vanessa. Really looked at her. I saw the slight tremor in her hands, the desperate, hungry look in her eyes. She needed this party to solidify her fake status. She had probably scoped out the property, realized the front gate was broken, and found a loose window. She was gambling everything on the fact that the rich owners wouldn't show up. A party? I said. My voice was smooth, encouraging. That sounds amazing, Vanessa. Vanessa blinked, clearly thrown off by my lack of challenge. She recovered quickly, a smug smile spreading across her lips. It's going to be epic. Catered alcohol, full run of the mansion. You should come, Sadie, if you think you can handle it. Oh, I said, my smile widening just a fraction. I wouldn't miss it for the world. The school week dragged on, colored entirely by the myth of Vanessa's impending gala. By Wednesday, the cafeteria was buzzing. People who had never spoken to Vanessa were suddenly offering to do her homework, buying her coffee just to secure an invite. She walked the halls like royalty, dispensing nods and promises. I watched it all from the periphery, eating my salad with mechanical precision. Lily sat across from me, endlessly dissecting what she was going to wear. I heard the Hawthorne place has an indoor pool, Lily said, stirring her iced tea. Vanessa said her dad imported the tiles from Morocco. Is that right? I murmured. You're being weirdly quiet about this, Lily noted, narrowing her eyes slightly. Usually you hate when someone else is the center of attention. Just tired? I lied smoothly. Besides, it's generous of her to host us. Underneath the table, my hands were perfectly still. I felt no anger toward Lily. Not anymore. Anger requires a belief that someone should know better. Lily was just a moth. Vanessa was the flame. I was simply the person locking the doors to the room so they could both burn. Thursday afternoon, after the final bell rang, I didn't go home. I drove 45 minutes out of town, taking the winding coastal highway until the trees grew thick and the cell service dropped. The iron gates of the Hawthorne Estate loomed at the end of a private drive. Just as I remembered from the first timeline, the electronic motor on the left gate was jammed. A person could easily slip through the gap. Vanessa would have figured this out. I bypassed the gate and drove up to the main house. It was a sprawling masterpiece of glass, timber, and stone, overlooking the gray churn of the ocean. I parked in the rear and unlocked the side door with my physical key. The air inside was stale, smelling faintly of cedar and expensive floor wax. I walked to the security panel in the utility room. My father had upgraded the system last year. It was top of the line. Motion sensors, glass break detectors, high-definition infrared cameras in the main living areas originally installed because we had a crew of contractors in to fix the roof, and my mother was paranoid about the art. Usually, the system was fully armed, which would trigger an immediate police dispatch if a door was breached. Vanessa's plan in the past life was to break a specific basement window she'd found unlatched, hoping there were no motion sensors in the cellar. I wasn't going to make her crawl through a window. That was a misdemeanor. That was a slap on the wrist. I wanted a felony. Several, actually. I opened the lockbox, mounted next to the side door, the one meant for the landscapers. I punched in the old code, removed the spare key, and placed it right under the very obvious, fake plastic rock by the porch step. I wanted her to find it. I wanted her to use a key to open the front door. It established premeditation, breaking and entering with intent. Next, I went to the security panel. I disabled the exterior alarms and the door chimes. I left the perimeter completely silent. Let them walk right in. But I activated the interior cameras, every single one. I set them to record directly to our secure cloud server. Then, I enabled the silent panic triggers on the glass break sensors. If they broke anything, no alarm would sound in the house to warn them. The notification would simply ping my phone. I spent the next 2 hours redecorating. My mother kept her most valuable pieces locked in the climate-controlled vault in the basement. I opened it. I carried up a pair of Ming Dynasty vases, valued at roughly $40,000 each. I placed them on precarious, narrow pedestals right in the center of the main foyer. A slight bump would shatter them. I took out a first edition Hemingway, signed, and left it casually on the kitchen island where people were bound to mix drinks. I brought out the Persian silk rug we normally kept rolled up and laid it out in the living room, right where muddy shoes would trample it from the patio. Every object I moved was a calculated risk. I was betting my family's heirlooms against Vanessa's destruction. But I knew high schoolers, I knew alcohol, and I knew Vanessa's absolute lack of respect for things that didn't belong to her. She wouldn't protect the house. She would encourage the chaos to prove how untouchable she was. By the time I locked up and drove back toward the city, the sun was setting, casting long, bloody streaks across the water. I felt a profound, hollow calm. Friday morning at school was chaotic. The anticipation was a living thing in the hallways. Vanessa caught me by the lockers before first period. "Sadie," she said, her voice dripping with mock sweetness. "I just wanted to make sure you were coming tonight. I know you're used to being the one hosting. I'd hate for you to feel left out." I shut my locker. The metal clang echoed sharply. I turned to look at her. She was wearing a delicate gold necklace. I recognized it immediately. It was mine. She must have swiped it from my gym bag during PE. The urge to reach out, grab the chain, and choke her with it flared hot in my chest. But I crushed it down. "I'll be there, Vanessa," I said quietly. "I'm really looking forward to seeing your house." She smiled, oblivious to the trap snapping shut around her ankle. "Great. See you at 9. Don't be late." The night was unusually cold for October. A thick, damp fog rolled in off the ocean, swallowing the coastal highway and turning the headlights of the cars into blurred, glowing orbs. I parked a quarter-mile down the road from the Hawthorne estate, hiding my car behind a cluster of dense pines. I didn't want my license plate anywhere near the driveway. I walked the rest of the way. The damp air clung to my face. Even from a distance, I could hear the heavy, rhythmic thumping of bass. It vibrated through the soles of my boots. As I approached the broken iron gate, the scale of the party became clear. There were at least 50 cars parked haphazardly across the manicured front lawn. Deep tire ruts tore through my mother's prized hydrangeas. I slipped through the gate and walked up the gravel path. The front doors were wide open. Light poured out onto the steps, illuminating a group of lacrosse players passing around a bottle of cheap tequila. I stepped inside. The destruction was immediate and visceral. The air was thick with the smell of weed, spilled beer, and cheap perfume. Muddy footprints were tracked aggressively across the white marble of the entryway. I looked to my left. One of the Ming vases was already gone, shattered. The delicate blue and white porcelain shards were swept carelessly into a pile near the coat closet. Strike one, I thought, pulling my phone from my pocket and snapping a discreet photo of the broken ceramics. Grand larceny, destruction of property. I moved deeper into the house, drifting like a ghost through my own halls. Nobody noticed me. They were too busy drinking, shouting over the music, and exploring rooms they had no business being in. I found Vanessa in the main living room. She was holding court on the pristine white sectional sofa, a plastic red cup in her hand. Tyler was sitting next to her, his arm draped heavily around her shoulders. She was wearing a backless black dress, definitely expensive, definitely not hers. "Yeah, my dad had the fireplace shipped piece by piece from a chateau in France," Vanessa was saying loudly over the music to a group of wide-eyed sophomores. "It was local river stone. My grandfather built it himself. It's incredible," Lily fawned, sitting on the edge of the coffee table. "You're so lucky, V." "It's just a house," Vanessa laughed, tossing her hair. Honestly, the maintenance is a nightmare. I told my parents we should sell it, but they're obsessed. I stepped out of the shadows and into the light of the room. It really is stunning, I said. The group turned. Vanessa's smile faltered for a fraction of a second before she plastered it back on. Tyler shifted uncomfortably. He always got weird when I was around Vanessa, caught between the girl he used to like and the shiny new toy he was obsessed with. "Sadie, you made it," Vanessa chirped, standing up. She wobbled slightly. She was already drunk. "Good. I did," I said, looking around the room. I let my eyes linger on a wet, red stain spreading across the Persian silk rug I had specifically placed there. "You have a beautiful home, Vanessa. So spacious." "Thanks," she said, lifting her chin. "Feel free to look around. Just don't go upstairs. Master bedrooms are off limits." She said it with such authority. It was almost impressive. Of course, I nodded. "I'm going to grab a drink." I walked away before she could say anything else. I went straight to the kitchen. The scene was worse here. The granite countertops were covered in crushed cans, sticky puddles of liquor, and half-eaten food. My mother's signed Hemingway book was currently being used as a coaster for a sweating bottle of vodka. The cover was warped and stained. I picked up the bottle, moved it, and snapped another picture of the ruined book. Strike two. As I slipped my phone back into my pocket, a loud, shattering crash echoed from the back sunroom, followed by a chorus of cheering and laughter. I walked toward the noise. The sunroom was a glass-enclosed patio overlooking the ocean. Two guys from the football team were wrestling. One of them had been thrown backward into a floor-to-ceiling window. The reinforced glass hadn't completely broken, but a massive, spiderweb crack spidered across the entire pane. My phone vibrated in my pocket. The silent alarm, the glass break sensor had triggered, sending the alert directly to my device. The security cameras were rolling. The damage was well over $50,000 by now. The threshold for felony vandalism in this state was $1,000. They had cleared that in the first 20 minutes. I stepped back out into the main hallway. The noise was deafening. Someone had brought a professional PA system and hooked it up in the dining room. The antique chandelier above them was rattling dangerously. It was time. I didn't storm into the middle of the room and demand the music stop. I didn't yell at Vanessa or call her a fake in front of everyone. I had already learned that lesson. You don't argue with parasites. You exterminate them. I walked out the side door, slipping back into the cold, foggy night. The damp air hit my face, shocking my system out of the heavy, suffocating atmosphere of the house. I walked down the dark path toward the cliff edge, far enough away that the base was just a dull thud behind me. I stood there for a moment, listening to the crashing waves. The ocean sounded exactly the same as it had on the night I died. Cold. Indifferent. I pulled my phone out. The screen glowed against the darkness. I didn't hesitate. I didn't feel a shred of pity. I dialed 911. 911. What is your emergency? The dispatcher's voice was sharp and clear. I forced my breathing to quicken. I injected a tremor into my voice, channeling every ounce of genuine terror I had felt in my past life into this performance. "Please," I whispered, making my voice shake. "Please, you have to help me. I'm at the Hawthorne Estate on Coastal Route 4. I came to check on my family's property, and there are dozens of people here." They broke in. "Okay, miss. Stay calm. Are you in a safe location?" "I'm hiding outside in the dark," I lied, looking back at the glowing, pulsing house. "They're destroying everything. I think I saw someone with a gun. Please, hurry. I'm so scared." "Units are being dispatched immediately, miss. Stay on the line." "I have to stay quiet," I whispered, hanging up the phone. I slipped it back into my pocket and turned to face the house. I leaned against the trunk of a massive oak tree, crossing my arms over my chest to ward off the chill. The trap was sprung. Now I just had to wait for the jaws to snap shut. The wait was the easiest part. In my past life, waiting was a state of perpetual anxiety. Waiting for the other shoe to drop. Waiting for my friends to text me back. waiting for the bank to foreclose. Now, leaning against the damp bark of the oak tree, waiting felt like holding a winning lottery ticket. It took exactly 12 minutes. The first sign was the sound, a low, wailing siren cutting through the dense coastal fog, growing louder, sharper. Then came the lights, red and blue flashes violently strobing against the wet pine needles, piercing the dark like a blade. Because I had mentioned a gun, the response was overwhelming. It wasn't just a single cruiser coming to bust up a teenage rager. It was a swarm. 4 county sheriff SUVs tore up the gravel driveway, their high beams illuminating the panicked faces of the kids on the front porch. 2 more cruisers blocked the broken iron gate, sealing the exit. The heavy thud of the bass inside the house was abruptly cut off, replaced by the chaotic symphony of shouting cops, barking K9S, and screaming teenagers. "County Sheriff, nobody move! Keep your hands where we can see them!" The front doors, previously wide open to welcome the party, became a bottleneck of sheer terror. Kids scrambled, slipping on the wet grass, dropping red plastic cups that spilled cheap beer across my mother's ruined hydrangeas. A few tried to run toward the tree line, but the blinding sweep of police spotlights stopped them dead in their tracks. I stayed hidden in the shadows of the tree line, watching the rats scatter. Officers in tactical vests breached the front entrance. I heard the sharp, authoritative commands echoing from inside my family's home. The sound of glass crunching under heavy combat boots. The frightened, high-pitched sobbing of girls who suddenly realized their Ivy League college acceptances were evaporating into the night air. I waited 3 more minutes. Let the panic marinate. Let the reality set in. Then I pushed off the tree, smoothed the front of my white sweater, and walked purposefully out of the dark and into the blinding glare of the floodlights. "Hey, stop right there! Hands up!" A young deputy had his flashlight trained squarely on my face, his other hand resting on the holster of his sidearm. I stopped immediately. I didn't raise my hands in panic. I raised them calmly, palms open, completely unthreatening. "I'm the one who called," I said. My voice was steady, projecting clearly over the din of crying teenagers. "My name is Sadie. My parents own this property." The deputy blinked, lowering the flashlight just enough so I wasn't blinded. He clicked his radio. "Captain, I've got a young female out front. Claims to be the 911 caller and the homeowner." A moment later, a broad-shouldered man with graying temples and a heavy, dark jacket walked out of the front doors. He looked exhausted, the kind of tired that comes from decades of cleaning up other people's messes. He approached me, his eyes scanning my calm demeanor. "You called this in?" he asked, his voice a low rumble. "Yes, sir," I replied. "My parents are in London. I came out to check the perimeter because the security system pinged my phone with a glass break alert. When I saw the cars, I stayed back and called you. You said you saw a weapon." I saw a guy in a Letterman jacket on the back patio, holding something dark and metallic. He was waving it around. It looked like a handgun. I didn't want to get closer to verify. I kept my face perfectly neutral. It was a lie, but it was a necessary one. It justified the tactical response. It ensured nobody was getting a warning. The captain studied me for a long second, then nodded. "Smart girl. Do you have ID?" I reached slowly into my back pocket and handed him my driver's license. He shined a small pen light on it. "Sadie, address, 1445, Coastal Route 4. "All right, Sadie. The premises are secured. We haven't located a firearm yet, but we have about 60 minors detained in your living room. A lot of damage in there." He handed the license back. "Can you come inside and confirm the property owner's intent to press charges?" "Absolutely." Walking through the front doors this time felt entirely different. The house was blazing with harsh fluorescent overhead lights the police had flipped on. The music was dead. The silence was heavy, punctuated only by the crackle of police radios and the quiet weeping of my classmates. They were all sitting on the floor of the main living room, hands on their heads or zip-tied in front of them if they had tried to run. Tyler was sitting near the fireplace, looking pale and terrified. Lily was next to him, mascara running down her cheeks in thick, black rivers. And then there was Vanessa. She was standing near the center of the room, arguing with a female deputy. Her backless black dress was smeared with ash, and her perfect curls were a tangled mess. The alcohol had clearly short-circuited her self-preservation instincts. "You can't do this!" Vanessa shrieked, her voice echoing off the vaulted ceilings. "You don't understand. This is my house. My father is going to sue this entire department. Call him. Call him right now." The deputy looked unimpressed. "Sit down, miss." "I will not sit down in my own house," Vanessa stamped her foot. "I invited these people. You are trespassing." The captain walked into the room, with me trailing a step behind him. "Is that right?" the captain asked loudly, cutting through Vanessa's hysteria. The entire room went dead silent. 60 pairs of eyes turned toward the doorway. They saw the captain. And then they saw me, standing beside the commanding officer, unharmed, unbound, and looking utterly indifferent.
Vanessa froze. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. The smug, entitled rage melted off her face, replaced by a profound, hollow confusion. She looked from me to the cops, and then back to me. "Sadie?" Tyler whispered from the floor. "Captain," I said, my voice carrying clearly across the silent room. "I've never seen most of these people before in my life, but I do know her." I pointed directly at Vanessa. "What are you doing?" Vanessa hissed, taking a step toward me before the female deputy put a firm hand on her shoulder. "Tell them, Sadie. Tell them this is a misunderstanding. It's my party." I didn't blink. "Captain, that girl's name is Vanessa. She is a scholarship student at my high school. She does not live here. She has never lived here. She broke into my family's home." The collective gasp from the floor was audible. Lily's head snapped up, her tear-stained face twisting in shock. Tyler stared at Vanessa as if she had just grown a second head. The illusion shattered in real time. It was a physical thing in the room, breaking apart like the Ming vase in the hallway. "That's a lie!" Vanessa screamed, panic finally clawing its way up her throat. Her eyes were wide, darting frantically around the room. "She's lying! She's just jealous!" "Tell them, Tyler! Tell them it's my house!" Tyler looked away, fixing his eyes on the floor. "I have the property deed digitally scanned on my phone," I offered calmly to the captain, along with the security footage from the hidden interior cameras. I activated them remotely when I got the perimeter breach alert. I have her on video unlocking the front door, letting everyone in, and claiming ownership. I pulled my phone out and opened the security app. I handed it to the captain. He tapped the screen, watching the crisp, high-definition infrared footage of Vanessa holding court on the white sectional, bragging about the imported riverstone. Vanessa stared at the phone in the captain's hand. The blood drained from her face, leaving her pale and translucent. The reality of the trap was finally closing its jaws around her neck. "No," she whimpered, her legs giving out slightly. The deputy held her up. "No, wait, Sadie, please. I just wanted to borrow it. You weren't using it. Please, Sadie. We're friends." "We are not friends, Vanessa," I said quietly. "You're a burglar." The cataloging of the damage took 3 hours. I walked from room to room with the captain and a crime scene photographer, detailing the ruin. In my past life, this destruction would have broken my heart. Now, it was just evidence. Every broken item was another nail in her coffin. To ensure maximum legal leverage, I provided the police with a conservative, itemized list of the damages incurred during the break-in. Ming Dynasty. Porcelain vase. 1. Shattered. Appraised value. $42,000. First edition Ernest Hemingway novel. Water and alcohol damage. Appraised value. $15,000. Persian silk rug. Biohazard and red wine stains. Appraised value, $28,000. Custom reinforced sunroom window.
cracked framing and glass. Repair estimate, $12,000. Antique dining room chandelier. Motorized winch broken. Crystal damage. Repair estimate, $8,500. General cleaning and biohazard removal, $5,000. Total estimated damage, $110,500. Over $100,000, the captain muttered, writing the figures down on his clipboard. He looked at me, a mix of pity and respect in his tired eyes. Your parents' insurance will cover it, but the district attorney is going to have a field day with this. This isn't just a party gone wrong. It's grand larceny, felony destruction of property, and breaking and entering. I want to press every single charge available, I said, my voice hard, against everyone who stepped foot inside, but specifically against her. She organized it. She'll be charged as an adult in this state, he warned me. $100,000 in damages? She's looking at real time. Restitution will bankrupt her family. Actions have consequences, I replied flatly.
By 2 a.m., the buses arrived. The police didn't have enough cruisers to transport 60 kids, so they commandeered 2 county transit buses.
I stood on the front steps, watching the procession. It was a march of the defeated. Kids I had known since middle school were being led out in zip ties. Their heads hung low. Tyler walked past me, his jaw clenched tight. He didn't look at me. He looked shattered. The girl he thought was a wealthy heiress had turned out to be a delusional criminal who had just cost him his college athletic scholarship. Lily walked past next. She stopped at the bottom of the steps. "Sadie," she cried, her voice trembling. "I didn't know. I swear to God. I thought it was her house. You have to believe me." I looked down at her. In the previous timeline, Lily had been the first to turn her back on me when Vanessa started her smear campaign. She had blindly followed the money, the status, the easiest path. "Ignorance isn't an excuse, Lily," I said. "You walked through a broken gate into a house that didn't belong to you. Have fun explaining the arrest record to your parents." She sobbed louder, a deputy gently shoving her forward toward the bus. Finally, they brought Vanessa out. She wasn't yelling anymore. The fight had completely drained out of her. She looked small, pathetic. Her designer dress was torn at the hem, and her bare feet were stained with mud and spilled alcohol. Real steel handcuffs locked her wrists behind her back. She stopped when she saw me standing on the porch, looking down at her like a queen surveying a conquered province. She looked up, her eyes red and swollen. "Why didn't you just tell me?" she whispered, her voice cracking. "If you knew I was lying, why didn't you just call me out at school? Why did you let me do this?" It was the question of the night. It was the question she would ask herself every single day as she sat in a jail cell, as her parents drowned in legal debt, as her life was systematically dismantled. I walked down the steps until I was standing face to face with her. The cold night air blew between us. "Because telling the truth doesn't work on liars," I said, my tone barely above a whisper, meant only for her. "If I called you out, you would have spun a story. You would have cried, played the victim, and made me the villain. You did it once before." She frowned, confusion clouding her eyes. "Once before? What are you talking about?" "You wanted to live in my house, Vanessa. You wanted to play with my things. You wanted my life." I leaned in closer. I could smell the stale tequila on her breath. "Well, you got exactly what you asked for. The keys were right there. All you had to do was turn the lock. You dug this grave yourself. I just gave you the shovel." "You're psychotic," she breathed, a fresh wave of terror washing over her face. "No," I corrected, stepping back up onto my porch. "I'm just awake." I turned away and walked back into the house as the deputy led her to the cruiser. The next few weeks were a bloodbath, legally and socially. The story exploded locally. It was front-page news in the county paper. Scholarship student orchestrates $100K break-in at Hawthorne Estate. The school administration had no choice. Vanessa was expelled immediately. Tyler was suspended for the semester, losing his spot on the football team and his subsequent college offers. Lily's parents grounded her for a year, forcing her to write me a groveling 6-page apology letter that I promptly shredded without reading. The criminal proceedings were swift. Faced with irrefutable, high-definition video evidence and an ironclad timeline of premeditation, Vanessa's public defender begged for a plea deal. The district attorney refused. The community was outraged by the entitlement, and the DA wanted to make an example of her. She was convicted of 2 felonies. The judge ordered a massive restitution sum that forced her parents to file for bankruptcy and relocate to a cramped apartment 2 states over. As for me, my parents flew back from London in a panic. When they saw the damage, my mother cried. But my father simply tightened his jaw and called our lawyers. They never suspected my involvement. To them, I was the vigilant daughter who had saved the house from total destruction by calling the police. My father's logistics company hit the same rough patch it had in the previous timeline a month later. But this time, there was no Vanessa to steal documents. There was no smear campaign. There was no federal audit. My father navigated the financial dip quietly, restructured a few debts, and by spring the company was thriving again. He never suffered the heart attack. He never got that hollow look in his eyes. I sat in my bedroom on a Tuesday evening in April, doing calculus homework. The window was open, letting in the warm spring breeze. I put my pencil down and looked at my hands. They were steady. The phantom chill of the rain and concrete from my past life was finally gone. I had been dragged to hell by a parasite. I had died cold, alone, and despised. But the universe, in its infinite chaotic humor, had hit the reset button. It had given me a second chance. I didn't intend to waste a single second of it. I closed my textbook, turned off the desk lamp, and went downstairs to have dinner with my family. Alive. Whole. Untouchable. That's how you handle a fake rich girl. No screaming, no messy arguments, just letting her walk right into her own perfectly laid trap. If you loved watching Sadie dismantle Vanessa's lies and take back her life, show some love. Hit that like button, share this story with someone who loves a brilliant revenge plot, and make sure to subscribe to the channel for more Reborn drama. Drop a comment below. What would Times You Times have done in Sadie's shoes? Stay tuned.